for coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and start our program because we've got a full agenda. Before we get into the content, I do want to acknowledge that putting together an event like this really does take a lot of organizations and a lot of people. And so I just want to recognize some of those people and organizations. First of all, this event is being brought to you essentially by Peninsula Clean Energy through a grant. And the grant was awarded to 350 Silicon Valley to do a number of these different events throughout the Bay Area. And when we heard that they were doing this, Pacifica Climate Committee said, let's bring it to Pacifica. And so we partnered with the city of Pacifica to bring it here. And so I do want to acknowledge, you're going to hear from Christian Murdoch in a moment, and Mayor Big Stick is here, and also Council Member Sue Vaterlos is here. And we appreciate the support from the city of Pacifica. Before we get into the content, also just want to mention to the speakers and everybody that's in the audience, we are having this filmed by Pacific Coast Television, which we really appreciate. So presenters, we're going old school. We've got a cord on a microphone. I don't have a clicker, so we do have to approach the laptop and click the right button to advance the screen. So just so that you know that. Also, the camera is over there, just so you know. Want to mention there are some events that we're hoping to bring here in the future, and you can see them listed here. Nothing has been scheduled yet, nothing in stone. If you are here as a member of an organization, a Pacifica organization, we would love to partner with you to maybe bring some more of these events to the community, so you can see what we have in mind. Rochelle Bouchard, she's actually a local professional chef who specializes in induction cooking. Mohan has a very, very provocative and thought-provoking presentation about how the choices that you make in terms of the foods that you eat affect the planet. And also, we've got the EV Fair from the Pacifica Environmental Family coming up in October. We would love to partner with you, so please talk to us. My name is Margot Myman. This is Nancy Tierney, our co-host for tonight. We are both members of the Pacifica Climate Committee, which is a very it's a small grassroots group of citizens, residents here in Pacifica. We do not have 501c3 status or anything, so in that way we're kind of an informal group. But we take on issues that we think that we can make a difference with here in Pacifica. So the group's been involved with the work in Pacifica for about 10 years. When the original Climate Action Plan was created about 10 years ago, there were members of the group who were very, very involved in putting that together. I've only been part of the group for about a year. But anyway, you can talk to us afterwards if you are interested. We have a table back there where you can talk to people and sign up, and I'm going to hand it over to Nancy.
All right, so you can see that we have a couple of groups in common. Another is the Climate Reality Project, which I'm a relative newcomer to, although the organization's been around since 2006. It was started by a guy named Al Gore, and he, through them, and one advantage of Gore having started this, he brings in a lot of people that can speak knowledgeably about climate in any number of respects. And Margot and I recently went through a climate reality a training that was focused a lot on the Inflation Reduction Act. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So it's wonderful, it's free, and you get this green pen if you go through the training. And then I'm also a member of Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. So what we want to do this evening is tell you why going electric is so important, introduce you to, in quotes, new technology. In fact, what you'll learn, or if you don't already know, a heat pump is not a new technology, but it's being applied in new ways. Share information about financial incentives, not only the Inflation Reduction Act, but there's state and local incentives that are quite healthy. And then give you a chance to talk to people who've gone through some of this, and you'll hear a few stories in a little bit. Here's the agenda. As Margot said, we've got a lot to cover and some very knowledgeable and interesting speakers. So this is our story. Christian will start soon. Friday, we'll tell you a lot about this really interesting, and Margot and I attended a workshop in the city of San Mateo last week, so we heard this very interesting. And then a couple of us will talk about the IRA and PCE rebates, personal stories, and then I know some of you have already visited the tables, but there'll be time after the presentations to talk more to folks and to see a cooktop demonstration. So, Christian, who's planning director with City of Pacifica.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Christian Murdoch, planning director for the City of Pacifica. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm here to explain a little bit about some of the things the City of Pacifica is doing in relation to climate change and adaptation. I'm here to let you know the City of Pacifica takes climate change very seriously, whether it's extreme heat, wildfires, drought, sea level rise. Climate change affects our community in so many ways, and it's really important that the city be a partner and a leader in helping to address climate change at the local level by doing those things that's within its means and its control to address. So tonight I'm going to touch on the three areas, as I mentioned, REACH codes, electric vehicle readiness, and climate action and adaptation planning. So first, REACH codes. An interesting aspect of local government is that we manage and administer the California Building Code related to development in our community. And several years ago, a new concept came up to enact what are called REACH codes, which is sort of the plain language way to describe going above and beyond what the minimum requirements are of the California Building Code. So reaching beyond those standards to try to address change related to energy efficiency, greenhouse gases, climate change, et cetera. And so the City of Pacifica joined a number of communities primarily in the Bay Area beginning in 2019 to enact REACH codes for the 2018 California Building Code process. That work continued into the 2022 California Building Code update by going beyond what those prior REACH codes were and going not just for building electrification, but also trying to address electric vehicle parking related to new development. And so where our city council ended up in enacting REACH codes was to require for new buildings that they be all electric, with a narrow exception for for-profit restaurants to, in certain instances, have gas connections. But otherwise, to prohibit new gas connections in new buildings constructed with a building permit issued after January 1st, 2023. In relation to the electric vehicle parking requirements, going beyond what the minimum requirements were of the California Green Buildings Standard Code, the City Council enacted REACH codes to address single-family and two-family dwellings by requiring that they have the electrical wiring and plug set up for a level 2 as well as a level 1 charging system, and to ensure that they're located proximate to wherever the off-street parking area is. So for single-family homes, trying to get it close to where the garage door is so you could either connect a charger inside or outside for vehicles parked in or outside of the garage. And then sort of in the broader category of multifamily, mixed use, and commercial development, really pushing the boundary beyond where the California Green Building Standards Code was. And depending on the type of use, hard to simplify on a single slide, but requiring actually the installation of level 2 charging systems rather than just the pre-wiring for them to be EV ready, between 15 and 30% of the off-street parking areas. And then above and beyond that, a significant proportion between 10 and 30% of level 2 EV ready. So really taking advantage of that construction phase opportunity when new buildings are being constructed to plan the sites, to plan the infrastructure, and really front load a lot of that electric vehicle infrastructure. And so in terms of REACH code next steps, we applied for the Solar App Plus grant and received our local allocation for that. And so we'll be beginning Solar App Plus implementation to streamline electric infrastructure and solar panel permitting. And then we're also, unfortunately, having to evaluate the effect of a recent federal Court of Appeals decision, some of you may be aware of, affecting the city of Berkeley's ordinance, but potentially local REACH code ordinances more broadly. I don't have any further information I can share with you on that tonight, except that we are analyzing how that may affect the city's local REACH codes. The next area I want to touch on briefly is electric vehicle readiness planning. And so summer of last year, the city was able to partner with some students from Stanford University to undertake a 2-quarter assessment of the city of Pacifica's electric vehicle readiness and long-term planning. And so what that boiled down to was a set of recommended policies to implement a broader EV strategy, EV charging strategy led by the city, not only in its facilities, but also encouraging and broadening the deployment of those types of charging systems for private development as well. And then trying to see how that could leverage and be a part of an economic development strategy to draw people to Pacifica, to get them to stay longer while their vehicles are charging, and then also to spend their money here. So a lot of positivity in that and potential upside for the community, not only from an environmental standpoint, but from an economic development standpoint. And so we are fortunate to have had the opportunity to partner again with a new class of Stanford students who are going to go to the next step beyond just sort of a broad strategy to an actual strategic and action plan over the next 5 years. And so trying to get to that goal identified in the first round of planning to try to get, at some point, as many as 1,000 level 2 charging stations and 100 level 3 charging stations between public and private facilities to meet the community's long-term EV charging needs. So pretty ambitious goal, but the city is interested in that, certainly for its facilities and elsewhere, and knows that that's a critical part of electrification and climate adaptation. And then the third area that I'm going to touch on tonight is climate action and adaptation planning. CAP, I guess the name is the same from the old name of the Climate Action Plan, but really thinking also how we can take not just analysis, but action and adaptation. And so efforts to date related to climate change, action and adaptation planning, I'll just run down the list quickly. The REACH codes I touched about, trying to improve our permitting processes, updating our comprehensive general plan update last year, replacing the 1980 general plan with something really forward-looking for the next 20 years, prioritizing infill development, walkability, access to transit, really instrumental land use policies to address climate change. Updating our heritage tree ordinance to try to protect more trees that really provide climate and air quality and other greenhouse gas related benefits for the community. Implementing California's organics recycling law, addressing single-use and plastic foodware, joining Peninsula Clean Energy several years ago and converting all of the city's accounts into PCE. Really bold move, potentially contentious at the time from some folks, but really an important leadership step for our community and the other jurisdictions in the county. We updated a couple years ago our bike and pedestrian master plan to lay out a vision for walkable and bikeable community that's enabled us to begin to get grants to actually fund and implement bike lane and sidewalk improvements so that people have to drive less to get around our community. The EV charging station strategy, as I mentioned, the city has made significant investments in modernizing its vehicle fleet, trying to get hybrid vehicles and more fuel-efficient vehicles, and long-term thinking about how EV-only vehicles may be a part of the city's vehicle fleet. Continuing hybrid work schedules so folks working for the city don't have to commute 5 days a week, and carrying that transition that occurred during COVID into this post-COVID period and taking the environmental advantages of that. And then most significantly and most recently, city council support as part of the strategic plan process for updating the city's climate action and adaptation plan. And so our next steps to carry from the city council, placing this as a key priority on a very short list of critical items for the city to work on. This coming Monday, the council will discuss actually authorizing and forming a climate action and adaptation planning task force and seeking community membership. This is a really neat and innovative opportunity. Very few communities have done what we're trying to do, which is to create a task force of community members to actually take on the work of updating the city's climate action and adaptation plan, to really have that grassroots and community-led input into this critical process that will guide the city's actions over the long term. And then once that task force is formed, and we go out and we recruit members, taking the better part of the next 2 years to go through that community process and to go back and forth with the city council and the community to actually prepare adopt and begin to implement a climate action and adaptation plan. So a lot of exciting things to come. If you're interested, please reach out to me at the city. Come stop by and talk to us, or go to our website, cityofpacifica.org. We'd be happy to tell you more about all the things that we're trying to do. Thank you.
So as you can see, there's a lot going on at the city level. City Council meeting Monday. See you there. We'd like to introduce our next speaker. She is Friday Apeliski from the Building Decarb Coalition. As the name suggests, the Building Decarbonization Coalition is all about getting fossil fuels out of buildings. Friday spent over the last 10 years in the energy industry. She actually spent several years as a sustainability concierge. So if you were someone who was wanting to make your life less dependent on fossil fuels, you would use her services to help you manage all of that. So welcome to Friday Apeliski.
Thank you. I'm going to stand on this side so that, there we go. So that was what I was doing individually. You can definitely still ask me all of those questions, but in the meantime, you can also go to the switches on. This is the Building Decarbonization Coalition's initiative to inspire and help move forward consumers, regular people, homeowners, renters, people who live in buildings, which I hope is all of us. So the switch is on is what we're talking about. I'm just going to start with, what is home electrification? What are we talking about? Really what we're talking about is all of the appliances that are in your home. So that means your washer dryer, your stove, your heater or furnace, your water heater, maybe even your car. I'm focused on the building, not so much the car, but we can talk about that later if you want to. But when all of these products are powered by electricity, that's what we mean when we say home electrification. And why? Why do we only want to talk about electricity? Well, because if we have to stop burning fossil fuels for our climate benefit, then we can make electricity out of just about anything. We can make it out of the sun, we can make it out of the wind, we can make it out of the ocean tidal, we can make it out of algae. There's all kinds of ways of making electricity. And it's true, we can also make electricity from natural gas and coal and other things. But you can put all of that electricity onto a grid, and if we're all using electricity, we can pull it off of the grid. But if you're piping gas into your home, there's no way to green it up. It's made from dinosaur bones, and there's just no other way. So the best way that we can stop using dinosaur bones, or dinosaur plants, if you really want to be technical, is to stop burning them directly in our homes, right? The best way is to electrify. So that's really why we're talking about this. And I want to just spend a really quick moment on why gas, why not natural gas? Because I'm a native Californian, and I know that for many, 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 many years, we heard natural gas is the clean fuel. Isn't this the better option? Like, aren't we supposed to do this? And the truth is, burning natural gas, or methane gas, is cleaner than burning coal. That's definitely true. What we didn't know at the time when we told everybody that was that raw gas, methane, is actually incredibly potent at trapping heat in our atmosphere, more so in the short term than in the long term. So methane gas is really potent and really bad for the next 20 years, unlike carbon, which is a little bit less but lasts for much, much longer. So we have to talk about both of those things. But the first reason is it's not great for the environment. Okay, the second reason is it's not great for our air. When we burn fossil fuels, it puts nitrogen oxide into the atmosphere, and that is a contributor to smog. So if you can believe this is true, I almost fell over when I heard this, but I know it's true because I checked and checked and checked and checked and checked. But in the Bay Area, smog there is more contributing to smog from turning on our electric appliances than from driving our cars. Sorry, I said electric because I like to talk about electric appliances, but thank you. Obviously, I'm not saying that. Yes, from turning on our gas appliances, we contribute more to smog than from driving our cars. In the Bay Area here, which is kind of amazing because we usually think of spare the air day, don't drive your car, carpool. But we've done a really good job of making cars more efficient and not a great job. There's not really any way to burn gas more efficiently. So it's not good for the atmosphere. It's not good for the air we breathe. And it's really not good for the air that you breathe inside your house. So the outside air is regulated. It can't be super dirty. We have laws that regulate how dirty the outside air is. But we don't have any laws that regulate how dirty your indoor air can be. And it turns out that when you burn these fossil fuels inside your house, it contributes horribly to the air quality. So much so that if your inside air was outside, it would be illegal. It would be very illegal. And so, but we don't have that law, so I can just tell you, but there are now study upon study upon study about asthma and the connection between burning fossil fuels in your home and childhood asthma. So for as much as we have thought about this and been trained to think about cooking on gas and all of this, we have to recognize that there is a very real health component, and it's important for us to be clear about that. So now we get to talk about all the really fun stuff. And I'm going to go through this as quick as possible because I want to leave some time for you all to ask me some questions. But I'm going to start with HVAC. This is a heat pump. How many of you know that a heat pump is two machines in one machine? Yeah. Who doesn't want two machines in one machine for free, right? Buy one, get one free. You get a heater and an air conditioner all at once. And I live in San Francisco. You all live in Pacifica. We have Carl the fog that keeps us nice and cool in the summer. So it does seem a little ridiculous to be asking for air conditioning. However, I know you all remember 2 years ago when it was 120 degrees and the air was so full of smoke from the fires that it was quite miserable. And I will tell you, having clean, cool air inside my house was worth every single penny for that week alone. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the last time that it's going to be really, really hot. And so I'm so thankful that as I start thinking about maybe potentially needing cooling, because if for whatever reason, think about a heat pump. So I love it because it's two machines in one. Also, it's 3 times more efficient than a regular furnace. So I get to keep my house at 70 degrees all the time, which is really unusual, but I love it. Makes me really happy because I'm still spending less on my heating than I was before, and I'm much warmer and more comfortable. They're super quiet. They go all the way down to sub-zero temperatures. Not that that matters here, even though it feels like it's sub-zero. It is not actually, but if you were, say, in Lake Tahoe, you could still use an air source heat pump. And the last thing I will say about them, I don't know if this matters to everybody, but certainly to some folks, the heat and the cool that come out of these machines are very even. So in a traditional furnace, you would heat up the air really, really hot and dump all the hottest air on you. And then once your room cooled down again, then you would dump some more really hot air on you, right? Kind of like a bathtub. And so you're constantly going through hot, cold, maybe never comfortable. That is not the way a heat pump works. It is the same temperature air all the time, and just a little bit at a time, so it doesn't feel really blasty. It's very comfortable. So also, heat pumps work on water heaters, which is fantastic. And the thing I love the very most about my heat pump water heater is that it gives me hot water all the time. Right? And I think that that's basically what everybody wants from their water heater, right? That it works when you need it to work. And it's way more efficient, 300% more efficient. And I should say, The reason that heat pumps are more efficient than combustion is because they're not making heat. They're moving it from one place to the other. A heat pump already lives in all of your homes. Did you know that? Every single one of you has one. It's in your refrigerator. And when you open your refrigerator, it's cold inside. And when you close the door and you stand in front with your bare feet, you get some warm air on your feet, right? It's moving the heat from inside your refrigerator outside onto your toes. And that is how a heat pump works. It's got a compressor unit, and it pulls all the heat from the air, and then puts not the exact air into your house. There's a heat exchanger that happens, and then that heat goes into your house. And the same thing, it works in reverse. So that is why it is so incredibly efficient. And heat pump water heaters are really smart. They know that you can program them so they don't run during peak hours. So from 4 to 9, when electricity is more expensive, you just don't use your water heater then. You heat up the water beforehand. It stays nice and hot. You can use it during the peak hours, and then it will reheat when the peak time is gone. Or if you go on vacation, it will turn off and not keep all of the water super hot while you're not there. So who doesn't want that? All right, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is induction cooking. You guys, I hope that you will test it out. It is super fun. I have been cooking on induction since 2009, and I love it. But I recently was able to move into a home where my mom moved in downstairs, and she moved from having a gas range to an induction range. And I tell you this story because I want to demonstrate that everybody's delight with induction is different. So my delight is that my kiddo really likes pasta, and I can cook and I can boil water in 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes. And it's fantastic because when he's hungry, I really want to feed him. But my mom, when I said, Mom, what do you like so much about induction? What's the thing? And she was like, it's so easy to clean. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. That's not the thing that motivates me. But there is something for everybody in this. She was like, oh man, you know how like whatever you're cooking like boils over and then it gets in the grates and you gotta take it off and clean all around. And she's like, oh man, I'm so delighted that all I have to do is wipe it down and I'm done. So that is one amazing thing. Also, it's super efficient. So with a gas range, you only 30% of the fuel that you're burning actually heats the food that you are cooking. The rest of it goes out into the ambient air, right? That's why you can burn yourself, or your pot handle gets hot, or your room temperature gets hot. Folks who work in restaurants know about that. That kitchen is hot, right? So this is really efficient. 95% of the energy that you're using in an induction cooktop goes directly into the pot and the food. So really efficient. Also really precise. So you can dial it to be the exact temperature that you want. I'm no fancy cook, so I don't know that I need it to be exactly at 352 degrees, but surely there are some people who like that. I just really enjoy that I can heat up really fast, and if it's too hot, I can go down a little, and from boiling water to not boiling water is as fast as I can press the button. And for me, that's what precise means. For my dear friend, Rochelle Boucher, who is also a Pacifica she lives here. She is a professional chef, and she loves to tell me about how she loves that chocolate is the same temperature all the time. So she never burns chocolate because she can get her cooktop at exactly the right temperature and stays there. And then lastly, induction doesn't have any combustion. So you don't have those indoor air quality issues. There is no combustion that is related here, so you have clean air to breathe. And it is not that you shouldn't use your fan when you're cooking, because there are still some PM that comes from actually cooking food, no matter what. But it is much, much, much more healthy for you and your lungs. Also, Electrification is the future. You just heard that. The REACH codes are changing. This is the way that we are going. So let's focus on the delight of this, right? We kind of don't have a choice. We got to get there. And thank goodness we have all of these incredible appliances to help us. I will tell you, because I work with the switches on, is that the switch is real on, right? Go to our website. There are all kinds of educational information about all of these different appliances. There's, explainers on heat pumps and all kinds of things. There are also tools to help you make this transition easier. There is an incentive finder tool, which we'll talk about incentives in a second. Actually, I'm going to show you. This is what the website looks like. I don't have it live here, but you can see that if you go to the homepage, that big red arrow will show you where it says learn more. You can find out about all the different kind of appliances. Here they all are. And we include some interesting things about batteries and solar and other things too. And you can find out about incentives. So I mentioned about the incentive finder. There is also a contractor finder. So we can hook you up with contractors that work in your area who have already gone through a vetting process and are able to work with the incentives that are available for you. So if you go here and you look, you put in 94044, enter, what are all the things that exist? You will find a list of 26 available incentives. Those are federal incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act. There are tax credits that are available right now. There are rebates that will be available probably at the end of 2023 or maybe the very beginning of 2024. We can talk a little bit more about that. But right now in that 26, you've got federal tax credits. You have statewide incentives from Tech Clean California. There are regional incentives from BayREN. There are utility incentives. There are local incentives. There are incentives from Peninsula Clean Energy. So you can layer a whole bunch of these incentives together right now today. So it is really good also to know what's coming down the pike with the Inflation Reduction Act, but if you have a broken water heater now, don't hesitate. Heat pumps are for you. So I promised that I would be really fast. I rushed through this quickly so that I could answer a few of your questions now, and also I will be here. Okay, I'll answer 2 questions, but also I will stay at the end. So if you have more questions than that, find me. I am the one with the I Heart Heat Pumps button on. Does anybody have a question for me now?
I have gas, gas heating, gas water heater, gas range, I have gas everything. Which should I look at first?
All right, the question is, if you have all gas appliances, which one do you look at first? Well, it depends on what you care about the most. The most logical thing is, which one's going to die first? Start with that. But if you are somebody who is very concerned about asthma or your respiratory health, you might start with your range instead. Or if you care the very most about your carbon footprint, you might look at your water heater because you use that all year round. And after that, you might look at your HVAC system because you use that pretty heavily when you do use it. And those would be kind of the biggest reductions. But there's no wrong answer. The real answer is just get started. And don't feel like you have to do all of it at the same time. You don't. And sometimes that will depend on the setup in your house. One thing might be more complicated than the other thing. And, one thing might cost more than the other thing. So just start somewhere, whatever feels right to you. Behind you in the blue sweater.
What kind of cookware does the convection cooktop look like?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me about that. The question is, what kind of cookware can you use on an induction stove? You can use anything that a magnet will touch the bottom. Okay, so that is your grandmother's cast iron pan? Heck yes. The Le Creuset or enameled cast iron also works great. Any kind of stainless steel pot or pan you have will also work. So all the way from all-clad to the $5 version from IKEA, which I use, by the way, every single day. It does not have to be fancy, new pots and pans, but it cannot be aluminum. So that's the difference. If you have aluminum pans, they're not going to work because they are not magnetic. And the way that an induction stovetop works is with magnetism. So it does have to be magnetic, but any refrigerator magnet, if it sticks to the bottom of your pan, you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to ask you your question afterwards because she told me I could only have 2. Thank you.
So at the very end there, Friday was talking about incentives. So we're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about incentives. Nancy is going to talk to us first about incentives from the IRA, and then Christine is going to talk about incentives from the Peninsula Clean Energy. And then we're going to go from big picture to more specific personal stories.
And the switch is on. There's a brochure here on the 350 table with a bunch of references. The switch is on is listed there. So if you haven't picked one up, then do. So the Inflation Reduction Act passed less than a year ago. The biggest climate law in history, almost $370 billion for energy security and climate solutions. And we've highlighted a few of them there. You've heard several people talk about different components, tax credits, incentives. So $34 billion in tax credits to electrify homes, $9 billion for electric vehicles, that's credits, and then $9 billion in home electrification rebates. So through, I think Friday just mentioned this, no national cap in spending, and the credits are available now, okay? And you can get up to $3,200 a year, and then you can do it again. So it's $3,200 per year. And a couple of examples of the credits are, you can see here for the heat pump water heater up to $2,000, for an electric panel, $600, weatherization up to $1,200. And don't forget the weatherization component. It's not just, replacing appliances. Rebates, that's a different category. Even though this is federal funding, they're administered by the California Energy Commission. Available, I think Friday just said this, late this year into early 2024 until they run out. And these are called upfront discounts at point of sale. And stackable just means that you can use the incentives and you can also use the tax credits, right? Layered, I've also heard the term layered. The rebates are income-based. You can see here, I'll just point out the median income, 50% rebate on a heat pump water heater up to $1,750. So it's not, that's almost half the cost of a heat pump water heater. So it's not insignificant. And that's the median income to give you a sense of in San Mateo County. For low to moderate income, rebates now up to $8,000 for a heat pump for furnace. Heat pump water heater, that same amount, $1,750. Again, I'll bring up weatherization, insulation. Think about weatherizing your home, and that there's an incentive for that. The stovetop, again, you'll have an opportunity to look at that, $840. So the takeaways are make a plan, and you heard advice about, look at the age of your appliances. In particular, well, we would say all of those things, what's likely to die, and that may be where you want to start. And do some research. The heat pump water heater, there's a lot of push around that because, when your water heater dies, you don't want to be without. But I think it is somewhat of an individual thing. But there are a lot of resources. You've heard a number of us say that. So don't feel like you're doing this on your own. And actually, think about the city. City Pacifica has issued a lot of permits for heat pump water heaters, so they've got the experience too. So it's not an untested thing here locally. And then talk to folks. Christine Bowles, who's our newest council member and is the representative to the PCE, or alternate, okay, to the PCE board.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to go through my slides a little bit quickly, so I'm going to stand here, I think, where I can reach them better. As Nancy mentioned, Peninsula Clean Energy has a board, and Peninsula Clean Energy provides the power for San Mateo County. So if you look at your electric bills, I brought mine, I meant to make a slide. So there's a line item for your power generation on here, and that's Peninsula Clean Energy. So let me go down the slides a little bit before I jump ahead. But so as part of being on the city council, every city provides a board member to Peninsula Clean Energy, so partly to provide oversight and so forth, and communication of their wonderful programs to our community as well. So I think it's 96% of Pacifica households are connected with Peninsula Clean Energy now. When they started in 2016, everyone was automatically enrolled, where before you were getting your electricity from PG&E directly. So there's an opt-out program, and I just don't understand why those 4% of the people choose to do that, and I'll tell you more why. So Peninsula Clean Energy, like I said, was formed in 2016. The state back in 2002 actually passed a law allowing communities to set up their own power generation companies called Community Choice Aggregates, or CCAs, you might know them as. So the goal was to lower costs and provide cleaner power to the community than PG&E or other local providers do now. So if you look at the chart on the right, there's two basic components to Peninsula Clean Energy's work. One is to reduce the emissions in generating your power. So this is the total emissions in the state of California from different industries, and you can see electricity is 11 from in-state generation and 5% imports. And that's because some of it is still from gas power plants and other things too. So this is statewide, but Peninsula Clean Energy has a commitment to providing all of that as clean power. So right now 98% of the power is from clean, sustainable sources. Wind, solar, geothermal are the major sources. And they've just committed in the next 2 years, they're purchasing other leases with solar farms and other geothermal and so forth, so that 100% of our energy can be from sustainable sources. So they're really quite a leader, among the state of California. So Peninsula Clean Energy buys the power, and it's still delivered through PG&E's transmission line. So your complaints about the power going out, it's not Peninsula Clean Energy, it's really still an issue with the power lines. And then the other thing they do is provide cost savings. So I don't know if you know, but Peninsula Clean Energy has a commitment that their rates for the power will be 5% less than PG&E's rates. since they were started in 2016, just for the city of Pacifica, we have saved $2.3 million in energy cost here. And that has been a 98% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Faster? Okay. From what we were buying before with PG&E. So the other thing that they tried to do is to reduce emissions from buildings and transportations, because we know that that is a good percentage of our emissions individually. So replacing gas appliances, as we were saying, and electrifying transportation, and providing resources to help us do that at a low cost. There are a lot of state and federal rebates for electric cars, mostly for new cars. Peninsula Clean Energy has instituted rebates up to $4,000 for used EVs. So that helps people with tighter budgets and so forth, and it keeps the cars on the road longer too. Electric appliance rebates. I won't say all these, but again, for your induction cooktops, water heaters, heating and cooling, there are rebates directly from them and another company called Bayren. Bayren manages all of these rebates. And then they also have this wonderful program for any of Peninsula Clean Energy customers where you can get a $10,000 loan as long as you're replacing your water heater or your furnace. They'll loan you $10,000 and it gets put onto your electric bill. So it's not money that it's not a separate loan you have to take, it just automatically goes onto your bill. And then they provide money also for upgrades to your homes. Again, mostly for low-income residents, depending on the number of people in your household. And that's for appliances, but also for other upgrades, repairing your doors and windows, upgrading your electrical panel, et cetera. Sealing around your windows is a really important thing also. And then my husband and I are both architects, and we built Pacifica's first all-electric net zero energy home. In the Manor District on Monterey Road. It's a 7.9 kilowatt system. And so we're offering tours. We have a heat pump, water heater, heaters, induction cooktop stove, and electric clothes dryer also that we'd be happy to show you in person how it works and show you our energy bills, which are actually negative right now. So the tours will be June 17th, and we'll be at the table in the back, happy to answer questions, and you can sign up for those there. Thanks.
I want to mention that all of the incentives that you're hearing about, they're stackable. You get a PCE incentive rebate. That means once the national rebates are in place, you can still get the IRA rebate as well. So all of the above you can get. We're going to go to some personal stories now. We have some friends from down the peninsula. John McKenna is going to tell us a story of 2 heat pumps, I think. Right? Yeah, okay. And then we're going to hear from Tony Wilcox, who is, as you can see, 2023 most inspirational residential project. So we're excited to hear from him. So come on up, John. And then you're going to hear from a couple of us very specifically here in Pacifica about some of our experiences.
All right. Thank you. Well, thanks to all the organizers of the event, the other speakers, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's just great to see so many people that want to learn about solutions to climate change, so thank you. I just want to share a real quick story. I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and I was really concerned about her future, so I started looking into climate change, and I started to learn about all these solutions that we had. And whereas before I was really scared, now I'm very hopeful. There's so many solutions out there and so many things that we can do as individuals. We can advocate at our city, we can join other groups, and we can do individual things. So I knew that my water heater was getting near the end of its life, and I started looking into what I was going to need to do to replace it. But every story, this is just my story. Every story is different. Every house is different. So there's a lot of nuance to it. But I knew I had an old water heater. I needed to replace it. And I knew, well, a colleague of mine told me about the fossil-free pledge, which was basically she will never buy another fossil fuel-powered device in her life. And I said, I'm going to take that pledge too. So I didn't sign anything, just my own personal pledge. But I did that for my daughter and for future generations. And we all have different things we can do. That's one thing I wanted to do. So anyways, my water heater is getting old, but I had to figure out what's the best solution. I overanalyzed it, and 2 months later, it started leaking. And I was in an emergency situation, and I knew better to get myself in that situation, but I was. So I called a contractor, and within 48 hours, I had a brand new heat pump water heater. And I was really excited about taking that first step to electrifying my home. And it cost me $0. With the rebates that are available right now that we've heard about already, PCE, $3,000 rebate, $1,000 rebate from Bayrin, the cost to install my particular water heater was $39.75. So it would cost me nothing. It would have cost me $1,000 to $2,000 or more to go gas to gas. So that's great. There were other rebates that I didn't even need to use that, you know, if you need a larger water heater than what I got, you have those available. You have the tax incentives that were mentioned earlier. So that was just my personal story. The contractor I used is an organization called Sunwork. They're a nonprofit, and they started doing solar panel installations. They've since moved into doing heat pump water heaters, and they take volunteers to do the installs. And so you take a little 3-hour training online for 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and then you're good to go. And you can go install a water heater in someone's home. I've done it 4 times, 5 times now with my own, and it's a great experience if you want any sort of if you're kind of a hands-on person, and you just want to kind of learn how it works. It's great. It's a really good educational and fun experience. So I do recommend doing some planning. Don't get yourself in the situation that I was in. It's not that much to do. You just got to kind of figure out like what device is going to die the soonest. You can look at the serial number on your water heater, and you can go online and just figure out how old is that water heater. Mine happened to be 23 years old, which is very rare. Most of these water heaters last 10 to 15 years. So if you've learned that your water heater's that old, it's about time to get a new one and start doing a little bit of planning, find a contractor, call Sunwork, and get it planned to be installed before it starts leaking, and you'll avoid a lot of stress. So yeah, that's my story. And,
All right. And now Tony, the man of the day.
Yeah, no. There was a Peninsula Clean Energy bulletin out this morning that I joked that it was organized somehow that had my face on it. All right, I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about my experience, but more a little bit of an overview about what I think everybody should do. Hopefully, you guys have seen that the water heater is a no-brainer. It's basically free. If you're not moving on this, even with a brand new water heater, it's nuts. It's free. It's wicked efficient. My journey started when I blew an electrical line doing a bathroom model. The circuit breaker didn't break. The main line on the roof broke. And I figured I couldn't do anything until I replaced the main panel. So found out solar guys would replace main panels for free. They will literally throw a main panel update in you, and you can go get the rebates for it as well. So got a new main panel, 200 amp service upgrade, and a solar system put in. Had an old window AC. I used to spray my kids with water on that 100-degree week, trying to get them to go to sleep when they're crying. It's awful, and it's only going to get worse. So AC is definitely something that we absolutely love. They survived, 2 of them at least. Water heater furnace, we're old, 60s era, whatever. But one thing I want to focus on that a lot of people sort of glaze over is the importance of the EV. Our Honda Pilot we bought when my daughter, who's 10, hi Lily, and she's 10 now. we spent $25,000 on gas on the car. I didn't even know this until a few weeks ago when I punched it up. And an old BMW that we bought for $4,000 cost us $15,000. It's bonkers how much money people just accept that is normal that they have to pay. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do it this way. We used to spend about $500 a month on energy and about 11 tons of CO2 a year. So I am a little handy and also not able to afford contractors to do the type of job that I wanted, so I dove in. I ripped out the furnace and water heater. I had natural gas shut off at the house, and then we said we'd figure it out. We'll get things plumbed up by the time winter comes, right? So yeah, I don't know if asbestos is in anyone's houses. I've heard horror stories about people who have ducts that are old and things like that. I suited up to not take any chances, but I removed the cement pipe that goes up to the exhaust vent, and I could use that to run refrigerant lines and electrical. Had daughters helping me, cutting holes in drywall, move the water heater, ran electrical. It was a super fun project. Now we've got a 200 amp service. I put a full instrumentation system in it made by Emporia View. They're $150, and you get circuit by circuit power measurements. I could tell you right now what every device in my house is using. We made 74 kilowatt hours of solar today. I used 1.8 on my water heater. I used 0 on my heat pump. It's really cool. I can tell you how much energy per day, week, month, year, everything uses. And I'll have a breakdown in a second. We boosted our solar that we had originally to 12 points. We had 9.2. We boosted it to 12.6 kilowatts. It's a big system. I'll go over why it's so big and why I think everybody should go big. Heat pump, I did a 5-zone mini split. These things are great. Super cool. I can talk about that afterwards. My wife wanted a hot tub, and I had vehemently opposed it, but we had excess solar power, and we weren't using it, so I didn't have anything to push back on, so I put that in. But all of the hot tubs are resistive electric, and I hate resistive electric, thanks to Friday's talk. So I put a heat pump on it and cut lines in the hot tub and ran circulation out to a heat pump to heat it up. So the heat pump heats the hot tub 3 times as fast. It's a 13 kilowatt output. It draws 3 kilowatts of power. I know that because I have it instrumented. And heats 3 times as fast and uses a third the energy that electric would. It's just awesome. And then we finally got our second EV a week ago. And so we're finally on this. And by the way, you don't need a super high level 2 power charger to run these things. We run 2 EVs with 1 plug socket, one of those. 1 charger, we plug 1 car in some nights, we plug the other car in. Unless you're driving 150 or 200 miles a day, you were fine on 110. So you can get the EV first and get the charger later. And the water heater, again, if you don't get one of these, it's nuts. Okay, next up, I didn't put the induction range. We have a resistive electric one, which is fine. I'd love to get one, but the dryers, there are a bunch of types of dryers, but heat pump dryers are, again, they use a heat pump inside them to run a dehumidification cycle, and there's no vent to the outside, so they call them ventless dryers. But instead of warming up a bunch of hot air and blowing it outside, they warm up hot air, absorb the water, cool it down. And with the energy that they use to cool it down, they move it right back. So you're just moving heat from one section to another inside the dryer. No vent. You plug it into a 110 volt plug socket because it doesn't need the super high power. Close dry in maybe half an hour longer. And they use just fractions of energy. And they're, again, rebated and insane. And this is a combo unit that does washing and drying. So that's on the list. EVs are going to be the next home battery, and 2-way EV chargers are coming. I've talked to CEOs and everybody I can about them because I'm trying to figure out how not to put the EV charger in until I can get the 2-way system because we've lost power 5 times this year. These things are going to be great. They're going to be like $2,500 plus install, and that gets you a 65 kilowatt hour battery to run your home, which is way more than what you're going to get with a home battery. Where to start? I started with solar. I think it's a no-brainer. Solar, I'll give you the numbers on our system. In the end, it was $32,000, and I know that sounds bonkers, but that's what we spent on gas on 1 car in the last 10 years. So, put it in perspective, that money now buys all of the power that we're going to need for the rest of our lives at today's non-inflated dollars, right? Rates are always going to go up. Solar panel prices are going to go up in a few years, right? That produces $5,400 worth of retail dollars credit to use that energy. That's a 17% return on investment. It's warranty. The panels are warranted to make that much power. If you sell your house is worth more because you own the panels. Find me another 17% return on investment warranted product with no downside risk. If anybody has that, tell me. Solar's a no-brainer here. Once you have solar, it's nuts not to use electric appliances, right? You have free energy. Why not pay for gas? Again, I know that this has been beat into your guys' heads, but if you run a space heater in your living room and it's 100% efficient, and every bit of electricity is going into that, you're wasting 3 times the energy you need to. A heat pump transfers 3 units of heat in for every 1 unit of electricity. So you don't need to replace your total energy used. You need to replace what you used to use divided by 3, right? So run these numbers if you want, but 3,000 kilowatt hours for an EV, that gas would cost you a lot. I'll show you that on the next slide. Cooktops, they only use 300 kilowatt hours a year. To me, it's unfortunate to focus from a carbon perspective on the other end of the spectrum. So cooktops, fantastic for indoor pollution and air quality, right? But our cooktop used 273 kilowatt hours last year. That's out of an 18,000 kilowatt hour budget. So in an overall CO2 perspective, start with the heavy hitters. Your heaviest hitter is probably your car. We don't commute, and we still have this distance, right? This is 8,000 miles a year on an SUV, and 30 mile per gallon, 12,000 miles a year. And it's 2/3 of the CO2. Second should be your furnace. I know that we don't use them as much, but when we use them, there's a lot of power that goes through them. Our heat pump used 3,000 kilowatt hours last year. Our water heater heat pump used 675. So we're still using 4 or so much energy in our furnace as we do in our water heater. And then, dryer, we do a lot of laundry, but it's still not the biggest, heavier hitter. So what to do? Buy your power now. Don't plan to buy it forever from a service like Peninsula Clean Energy. You can make your own. And then run the math on your EV. Please, run this up. What have you paid? If you have 2 gas cars, get 1 EV. Try it out. I promise you it will be, if you're like me, you'll never want to go to a gas station. I would not go get gas again because I hated it so much. And I couldn't turn the key on because I knew that I was wasting money. Why do I have to spend $15 to drive to San Jose when it's free if I could just get that EV? So it will make you have a sense of waste that's really bizarre. Also, free energy is super rewarding because I used to charge the kids 25 cents to leave the door open, and I don't have to anymore. It's true. I made some money. And then retire your gas appliances. I want to pause. One more punchline on the EVs. An SUV in the next 25 years is going to cost you $70,000. A really efficient car is going to cost you $40,000. You're throwing a free car away to keep driving a gas car. Okay. The solar panels to drive that same car 12,000 miles a year are $5,000. It's 3,000 kilowatt hours. $5,000 for 25 years. You're done buying gas forever for $5,000. It's nuts, right? Secondly, retire these appliances as you can. With these incentives, it's nuts not to switch over to heat pumps because they're way more expensive to replace. Thank you for the comments. Get rid of your heater. Go to a heat pump, you get AC out of the deal. It's a pretty good deal. If you have AC, it's super cheap. You just throw the old one away, get somebody to vacuum the refrigerant out, and put a new one in. All the electricals, everything's done. It's probably gonna be free. Water heater again, and the rest is pretty basic. So a quick aside on water heaters. Come on, time. 3 more minutes. Okay. People tell me, I've got a tankless system. It's really great. No, it's not. The world's most efficient 100% tankless electric water heater still is going to use 2,600 kilowatt hours a year on the scale from my data. And the heat pump version is going to use 700. And the rebates just make this so easy. So don't associate tankless with efficient. Tankless are more efficient than the base water heaters that we're familiar with. They did a good job. They went from 60, 70, 80% efficient to 90% efficient. But you're still using 3 times the heat. So heat pump it. I was actually a little concerned that the heat pump would be effective. But I was in Canada, and it was minus 20 there, and these things were humming along. What's that?
Heavenly uses them too. If you ski.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I should pause on that because I've done a lot of COP curve work on these heat pumps, and COP is a heat coefficient of performance. How many units do I transfer of heat into my home for every unit of energy that I supply to that in electricity, right? I put 1 kilowatt hour in. How many do I get in my home? Well, if it's 47 degrees out, I get about 4 kilowatt hours of heat into my house, 3 to 4 kilowatt hours of heat. If it's 0, 30 below freezing, it's still twice as efficient as a resistive heater. So they're just wicked efficient. They're nuts. The kids put the button on me. So yeah, whatever you do, get started. These incentives make it really simple. Just go, because any waiting just continues to cost money that you don't have to spend. It's going to get more expensive in a year from now. Get started. And come ask questions if you've got any. Thanks.
All right. Well, we are nearing the end of our program here, but I want you to sit tight for 2 minutes because a few of us have Pacifica stories to share really quickly about our experiences here. I'll start. Janine, come on up. Last year, our water heater was going out, and luckily for us, it took a long time. It was a slow leak, which is kind of unusual. So we did do a lot of research, and we ended up with what we call a split system heat pump water heater. We were able to get over $3,000 in rebates last year. Is Dan Underhill here by any chance? No. He was our installer. We are super happy with our heat pump water heater. We did do a lot of research, but it's good. So that was our first step in electrification.
I'm another heat pump water heater, and what I did, which was very helpful, is I went through BayREN, and they call them energy advisors. So I scheduled a phone call with that person, gave me some instructions. I looked at the list of contractors that they approved, contacted them, got numerous estimates, selected Awesome Plumbing, and I noticed
That's the name of the company.
yeah. And they've done a lot of the work in Pacifica. I know that from the permits. So it went really well. The installer actually submitted the documentation for the rebates. So yeah, and I had no trouble getting it either. I was told that there may be, these products may be backlogged. I got the Ream unit, and I've got some handouts if anybody wants to that product information.
Hi, I'm just here to tell anyone who has questions about my experience with induction oven. So I got an induction oven. I got an induction range from Home Depot. My range failed. I wasn't doing it to decarbonize. I was doing it because we just wanted a high-performing range. My husband cooks a lot. Like your mom, I hated cleaning the gas. My husband was always cooking and things were spilling over. And I was always cleaning because I do the cleanup. And so I wanted something that was just really easy to clean. So I had to upgrade our electric panel. We needed more power into the kitchen in order to make it happen. We didn't have 220 in our kitchen. So if anyone has questions around getting an electrician, the permitting process, the cost of the oven, just the timeline for everything, you have to have the gas turned off, which we didn't do ourselves. I think someone did it themselves. We had to hire a plumber, but I'm happy to answer any of those questions for you.
All right. Well, we welcome you to stay for, maybe not as long as you want. We have to leave here eventually. But we've got information at all of these tables. We're going to have a induction cooktop demonstration in the back. Thank you so much for coming. All of the speakers are going to be available for questions. So thank you very much for coming.